Hello and welcome to UC Today. My name's David Dungay. Today I'm joined by Anand from Tata Communications. Welcome to the show, Anand. How are you?
Hey David, I'm doing great. All well with you?
All good with me, thank you. I'm excited for today's conversation. We're going to be discussing how to deliver great customer experience with a simplified CCaaS strategy. Something I know you're doing, doing great things over there at Tata. So I'm really excited to get into that conversation. But before we do, Anand, do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and the business?
Yeah, I'm sure. So at Tata's, I head the contact center as a service CCaaS portfolio business. The business fundamentally revolves around providing CX on a cloud-enabled contact center model. We have various flavors of these solutions that we offer. We partner with public cloud solutions that's available globally, and as well we have made certain investments into providing solutions on applications that are hosted on our own cloud services as well. We've been in this business for around 20 years, so we know what is it to cloudify contact center applications. And my role here is to enhance this, bring out certain solutions, certain platforms that can enhance CX as they consume CCaaS services from our cloud.
Great. So, 20 years of experience in the Tata Communications, and then that's there's been a lot of transformation over that period. Probably not least in the last sort of 3 to 5 years. There's been an explosion towards CCaaS.
All right.
I really want to get to those customer challenges, though.
Mhm.
What you're seeing today, and what are those challenges around businesses trying to make that transition to implement a CCaaS strategy.
Yeah. So fundamentally, I think there are about three pillars around which uh, customers keep thinking about how they migrate. One is about protecting existing investments, a lot of investments on existing infrastructure, a connected infrastructure system that they already had, and how do they want to protect that? That's point number one. Point number two is once you take an infrastructure that's been on-prem and you take it to the cloud, what kind of security and data security compliances come into play? How can you deliver the same set of services without breaching any of these data securities and privacy laws that come into play? That comes as a second one, which means it's got regulatory and the compliance concept there. And the third area is in terms of how easy or how quick can you onboard customers? How quick can you have certain changes, uh, certain nuances of new products, etc., that can be onboarded into CCaaS? So uh, fundamentally, these are the three pivots around which customers decide in migrating into a CCaaS, into a cloud. And those are fundamentally the challenges that we in Tata work with as well. Uh, right. So, given the fact that we have built these cloud solutions over the last 20 years, understanding the various infrastructure, the integration touch points, how do those systems talk to each other in the current as is scenario, migrate that to a to be end state goal and end state model, and then cloudify them, bring them into the cloud, and offer that back to the service is something which we have seen customers talking about, and that's an area where we consultatively work with our class customers to move them seamlessly without any friction into the cloud. So that's point number one. The other challenge that has newly cropped up in the CCaaS space is when you bring in a true omni-channel story, where the traditional contact center was voice driven, it was multi-channel. But today, as it goes to the cloud, when you bring in the complexity of AI and NLP that is also cloud native anyways, how do you have a seamless switch between, say, a digital channel to a contact center channel, and how do we migrate customers from um, an on-prem solution where most of these digital and AIs were cloud-based, and then you bring everybody to uh, a cloud platform for interactions. That's the other challenge that I see. We are having very interesting conversations with customers as we migrate them.
Yeah, I mean AI is the big theme of this year, isn't it? And it's going to impact the contact center, especially in a number of different ways. So I'm really fascinated to see how that pans out. So we're obviously talking about CCaaS now in the context of customer experience. I mean, does CCaaS is CCaaS the answer to great CX? And what kind of features really make the difference when it comes to delivering that?
Um, so CCaaS is a very important component to have great CX. It's not the only answer to CX. The reason I say it's a great customer experience ingredient is because today, as a customer, I look for instant gratification. If I think about something, I need something instantaneously. That translates to the other side. If I'm a business owner and if I need to launch something, the thing is once I launch a product, how can I help my customers reach out to me should they have any queries, any concerns, anything that they need to understand about it. So which means as a customer, if I'm told something is available, everything about it is instantaneous. If I send money, it has to go instantaneously. If I buy some service, it needs to be done instantaneously. If I have a problem, if I need to know on the road when is the next bus coming in, it is instant. I need to know right now when is the next bus route comes. So in the world of instant gratification, CCaaS becomes very important aspect because once everything is on the cloud, everything is available as a service, it's a matter of invoking those services and providing them as as an interaction channel back to our customers. So in my view, CCaaS becomes very, very important. It's a very, very important ingredient. Where erstwhile, a lot of it had got to do with integration, services, professional services, and then rollout, right? A lot of these components have been streamlined in the world of CCaaS today. Uh, Default connectors, default integration touchpoints already available in the cloud. So which means it makes enabling interconnected or hyper-connected systems to be available much faster. That means businesses have got the empowerment to get a set of things ready for their customers much quicker than what it was before. So yeah, it becomes a very, very important ingredient of CX in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I want to pick up on part of what you said there around that instant gratification. We all know that customer demands are increasing, and they want that instant contact with the brands that they're interacting with.
Right.
But at the other end, on the deployment side, that kind of translates as to when companies are going through these migrations to CCaaS, they can be quite long-term projects. There can be disruption to that CCaaS, to that contact with those end customers. How's Tata ensuring you getting these speedy deployments and really minimizing that kind of disruption in this world where customers want everything now?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting observation and a question, David, because what CCaaS as a default platform offers is the basic building blocks that is ready for consumption. But when it comes to personalizing into respective brands, in fact, say within the same industry, different brands have got different ways in terms of how they want to handle their customers. That's where personalization, customization comes in, and that's an area where uh, it can get a little time consuming. So uh, the fundamental point in terms of getting into cloud, in my view, and the way we work with our customers is to understand their end-to-end processes. So if you look at in a CCaaS portfolio, uh, a customer calls, it lands into a particular box, into a gateway, and then you have how that customer is handled based on who that customer is, what the customer needs to do. And then at some point of time, he or she needs to be transferred to a live agent to be able to talk. And then the journey ends, right? Uh, that's a traditional model. That's how it has been. But today, with the advent of omni-channel, which is driven by a lot of intelligent and smart bots, this need not be the only path, right? The customer gets an option to choose how he wants to interact, how he or she wants to get a response to a set of queries that he or she has. So what CCaaS has done is it has eased out the fact that the entire infrastructure is always available on a consumable basis. So my ACD licenses, my routing engine, everything is available, right? So if a deployment timeline earlier was the fact that we had to build the infrastructure for any change, capacity management, and all that needs to be done, that is taken off today because all these capacities are available, and the more you use them, the more you consume them, the more service you get rendered. So that's how it's been available today on that part of it. And then application component is slowly moving into that model as well, where you have these apps and services that's already built in, which means you just API-fy it. So what we fundamentally do is we've got APIs and very quick programmable APIs that makes consumption of systems and data that talk to each other very easy. So while it is not instantaneous from the point of view of what the customer would like to have, but fundamentally the deployment timelines of making two systems talk to each other and therefore getting the relevant data that needs to be used for a customer interaction and therefore for customer service is eased out a lot more. So at Tata's, the fundamental advantage that we bring in is the fact that we drive nearly 40-45% of the world's voice traffic. So which means the fundamental bedrock around which CCaaS work when I have to talk to an agent as a customer is something that I drive. It's on my network. So I'm able to control, I'm able to manage that conversation right from the time the customer calls in. It comes to the CCaaS platform that we have, that's been set up, that's implemented, and that's been institutionalized for the customer. A lot of applications that gets built there, and then what we are able to do is manage and own right end to end from the time it hits our network all the way till the journey is completed for the customer. We are able to track and manage that. So uh, timelines drastically reduced, infrastructure is ready, it's on a consumption model. New applications, yes, the first time you create an application, it's only a matter of creating an application to get multiple systems to talk to each other. But once that is done, I think the customers are ready to get their information they want in a jiffy.
Yeah. Okay. I want to bring it back to the title of the session. So we're talking about simplifying CCaaS strategies, to really ensure that great customer experience comes through. Why should customers want a simplified experience when it comes to CCaaS?
So I again, it's got to do with how the entire customer interaction journey has evolved over the last 10 years, David. Uh, there was a time when if I, as a customer, if there is a particular brand, it could be a bank, it could be an airline, it could be whatever, an expectation was already set by the brand that, hey, if you come to me, this is what I would offer. It's a great airline. For example, it's a simple thing, could be I'm flying an airline A, and if you just press the call button, or if I just give me a call, uh, there'll be no IVR. You'll directly land an agent, right? There was a time when it was like that. Uh, so the ease and the empowerment that the customer has got is something which differentiates how simple CCaaS can get. Uh, as a customer, I call my service provider when I have either a problem, I need to transact, or I have an inquiry. So it's troubleshooting, I have to transact something, or I have to inquire. These are the only three reasons why I have to talk to somebody, right? I have some
Mm.
if it's a financial institution or if it's an airline, I call to understand and check why, which flight works, what works, etc. Which today it's taken off in a digital channel through a website or whatever. But assuming that I've done all that, the reason for me to call an airline would be, hey, I need to change. They probably have to do some KYC, or there is a refund that was processed, which means the transaction and that didn't hit me the way it was promised. So The simplification of CCaaS becomes very, very important for me to understand why the customer is reaching out to me. Has there been a previous history on a particular intent that the customer is reaching out to me? And if I know the intent, the why the customer is reaching out to me, can my agent, can my team understand this prior, before the customer, or by the time the customer talks, and therefore is the agent or the customer service rep able to handle that customer efficiently. So and the CCaaS makes it a lot more easier, because of the fact that the entire ecosystem is hyperconnected, and this is a theme of the Tata's as well. We fundamentally come back into a model where say that we are someone that enables a digital fabric, builds out and manages and enables a digital fabric in a very hyper-connected ecosystem, which means everything is instant, everything is available in the crowd, the entire data, the entire ecosystem of people, they're all available instantaneously. How do we make sure that when a customer needs, what he or she needs is something which is available, right? And that's where simplification becomes a very, very important part of CCaaS going forward. And it's only going to get more and more simple, because as a customer, I have no patience. It's fundamentally the reason why it needs to be simple is because I'm losing my patience as we go by, right? So I think the only answer to an impatience is to be simple, and that's probably what CCaaS, the strategy around CCaaS turns out to be, and it'll become more and more simplified as we go by.
Yeah. Also want to pick up on one of your challenges you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, particularly around compliance and security. We know these
Mhm.
are huge challenges for businesses. Um, uh, Two questions. One, do customers care about compliance and security now? And what is Tata doing around this area to ensure customers are compliant and secure?
Uh, yeah, so the first question, David, about customers care about compliance and security, absolutely. Especially in a world today where, in a digital world where our entire we end up leaving a digital footprint in anything and everything that we do, as customers, as enterprises, as businesses. uh, Compliance and security becomes a huge responsibility of service providers as well. So just that, depending on which industry we are working on, the levels of compliance and security is varied, right? For example, the financial services versus an e-commerce or retail industry, in terms of, if I have to just take an example out of the blue. So compliance security becomes very, very important, but it changes to a bit of degree depending on which industry you're working with. So that's answer to the first question. The second question, in terms of what do we do, uh, our entire methodology, in terms of how we work, as an organization, it revolves around regulatory, revolves around compliance, revolves around how are we able to not just give a solution, but make sure that we are able to consultatively work with the customers as well as with the regulatory authorities to make sure that, we are it's one thing to be compliant as per authorities, but it's also to give the comfort to a customer that, hey, they have a trusted partner in Tata's, in terms of making sure that something which is as important as their customer data is secure, and it's nobody else but them who are able to access it and view it, right? So regulatory and compliance becomes a very important factor. In fact, that's a separate department, that's a separate unit within the organization that constantly drives regulatory, not just for a few countries, for globally, to an extent where there have been so many instances where we are able to abide, or we are able to look at compliance and security to be one of our areas of strengths, not the area of strength, but one of the areas of strength, in terms of how our competitors may have some issues and may have a weak spot that we are able to capitalize on, right? So that's one of the reasons why, the reason why we are able to do it, as I told you, because it's, the end-to-end concept, the entire infrastructure around network, the MPLS, the ISO private, the private cloud that we have built, and the application on the contact centers that is on the cloud. All of them are something which is controlled by us. It's on our platform. We have invested in that, and that makes us that makes us a partner that you can completely rely on, trust, as far as compliance and security is concerned.
Fantastic. So, Anand, we're getting towards the end of the conversation, but before we go, I do want to get a bit of a forward-looking sort of statement from you as to what you're seeing coming down the line in the CCaaS market, how that's going to develop over the next sort of 12 to 24 months, and what those really big drivers for the adoption of CCaaS are going to be from your perspective.
So it's a very well-known fact that the growth on the CCaaS has been phenomenal. After some initial apprehensions, if I may say, what COVID and the pandemic has done is fundamentally changed the way leaders are thinking in terms of how CCaaS can be adopted. So and many of the reports, if you look at some of the leading analyst reports that mentions, there is a significant CAGR upwards of 15 to 20% in terms of how CCaaS adoption is going to be there. That's point number one. Point number two, as we have more and more new age businesses, unicorns coming in, they don't have any baggage of assets that they have invested in. So everything is cloudified for them, right? Look at the ride hailing apps, look at food delivery apps, look at e-commerce giants. All of them are already on the cloud right from the day they have conceived their business plans and business ideas. So for them, getting the entire CCaaS play as well on the cloud is very easy. So you're going to have a lot of new age industries that will adapt to CCaaS very, very quickly. But the moment I get into the traditional areas, for example, the traditional banks, they've slowly started conceptualizing. Obviously, they are a lot more controlled. They need a lot more regulatory, depending on which part of the world we are. Their movement to CCaaS is going to be slightly slower compared to the new age industries and the unicorns that are catching up. So, in a nutshell, I think it's going to be a very balanced work around what CCaaS is going to offer and what an on-prem or a dedicated model is going to offer. I would believe that in the next 4 to 5 years, if I look at a global landscape, the world will probably be split into a 55-45 or a 60-40. 60% of the total contact center agents will be on the cloud. 40% will continue to be on-prem, not because they don't want to do it, but there is a bigger heavy lifting that they need to do when they move from an on-prem to a cloud. So CCaaS is the way forward, definitely, and that trend is only going to accelerate the way I see it.
Anand, thank you so much for joining me and sharing some of your insights.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for watching. Be watching me, David Dungay, on UC Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. That's it from me. See you next time.